Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. This morning, Tuesday, the 31st of January, I'm down here at Darling Harbour. It's early morning. I start work at 6 o'clock in about half hour's time. So I've got a little bit of time to get through yet another book summary on my YouTube channel and hopefully learn something new, go on a small journey, a small adventure, and see what we can accumulate and add to our library of skills and life hacks. The book that I'm going to go through today is entitled Stolen Focus by an author named Johann. And it's a book that examines how distractions have increased over time, and it's got to the point now where we live in a digital world and we are literally bombarded on a daily basis by lots and lots of messages which are diametrically opposed, which are similar, you name it. The messages are coming left, right and centre, and with social media, with artificial intelligence, with all of the data that is being captured on each and every one of us, those messages are being tailored to our desires, to our specifications, to our needs, so that it gets to the point where no two people will have the same amount or level of distraction, but that distraction will be ever more enticing than what it's been before. Because in the past, a lot of those distractions that have come our way have been scattergun. So you're easily able to shut them off and get rid of them and ignore them. But as we're saying, because social media, because the digital network is able to tap into our desires by registering where our interest lies, the things that we like, the things that we tend to watch. What's going to happen is that we're going to be increasingly tempted by selective messaging and selective marketing, because the marketers are getting ever so smarter. The technology is becoming ever so personal. So it's going to get to a point where we simply will be in a position where we just can't resist, because the timing of these distractions, the amount and the offers that get passed our way are going to really tickle our fancy. So this book tries to address the phenomenon of our attention spans dropping over time and what we can do to arrest this decline and change the trend, if at all possible. So the author, I guess, kicks off the book with an observation where he says that over time, our ability to focus, our ability to pay attention has dramatically changed for the worse. An adult in 2023 has a far shorter attention span than what an adult would have had in the 60s when I was born. And with that, come disadvantages, come issues, come challenges that we need to at least be aware of so that we can try and manage them as best we can and not fall prey to the weaknesses and the issues that it may generate, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So what we're saying here is that we have a lesser ability to be able to pay sustained attention. And to put it mildly, what the author is suggesting and saying is that if you can't pay sustained attention, then you can't really achieve many of the things, many of the important things, I should add, that you want to achieve in your life. And a lot of this, or the stimulus to write this book or to focus on this particular topic, came in a situation where the driver, or this author I should say, was driving home, and he was fiddling with his iPod, trying to select a particular set of music to be able to listen to relax to enjoy. And as he was fumbling with his iPod, all of a sudden he found himself mounting the gutter, mounting the curb, and almost losing control of his vehicle and potentially killing himself or killing others or injuring others through his lack of focus. I must admit that I had one of these moments as well in my life when I was returning home after visiting my Gubaro, William Caravellis, and his beautiful family. I think it was on an Easter when I was delivering a candle and some biscuits and eggs on my Easterly visit. And what I found was, as I was leaving, I just reached down to quickly, very, very quickly, momentarily, look at my mobile phone to see what time it was. And before I know it, I too had mounted the curb and the car was bouncing along, and I quickly straightened the wheel and got back on the road there. But I remember the fear that I felt, saying that I was just so lucky that A, there wasn't a tree, there wasn't a bin, there wasn't a vehicle or a person on that curb. Otherwise my life would have dramatically changed for the worse. Could you imagine running into a person, a pram, or a tree, for example? It would be a life-changing moment, and potentially, causing injury to others or injury to myself. But what this author says is that when your attention wanes, the quality of your life also changes, and it changes in a negative way. So moving on, the first formal point to come from this author is where he says that the internet isn't the only thing eroding our focus, but our focus is declining fast, and that in itself is a problem. We're changing the way we think, we're changing the way we interact, we're changing the way we connect with ourselves, with others, with technology, and all of these things are changing to a certain degree, an ever so slight degree, but a powerful degree, how we interface with each other on a social basis. So there's a scientist named Sune Lehman who conducted a study. So this book, these observations, are based on a study that was performed by a scientist where he found that the internet compounds a problem that has been developing, that has been trending over time. And what they've been able to find here is when you look at the internet, when you look at Twitter, the period or the amount of time that certain stories, certain subjects trend has been declining over time. So what we're saying is that, initially when something would trend on social media, it would get a lifetime of, a few days, for example. Whereas with time, what we've been able to observe is that these trends, these trending stories have been declining over time. So it means that people lose interest very, very quickly. And the reason for that, according to this author, is that there's been a massive increase in the rate in which we can spread information. There's been a great acceleration through the increase in the number of platforms that have enabled people to influence, to be social influencers, to spread information, to spread disinformation, to spread misinformation, has increased dramatically, where we've got to a point now where everybody seems to have an opinion. And we've got people with informed opinions, and we've got people with opinions that are featherweight, bird-brained opinions. And the warning here from this author is that we need to be discerning. We need to be able to discern. We need to be able to separate the heavyweight opinion from the featherweight opinion. So there's been a great acceleration where once upon a time you'd get 40 newspapers worth of information in a day in the 80s, whereas now you'd get hundreds of newspaper full, as an example, as a comparison, worth of information in a day. And we are overwhelmed. We are completely overwhelmed by information, misinformation, disinformation. And the warning again, of course, is that if you open your mind, if you take your guard away, if you drop your guard, then what you're doing is you're opening your mind to becoming somebody else's garbage tip, where they can tip their rubbish into your head. So be careful, be on guard, and don't be open-minded for the sake of being open-minded, but be discerning, be selective, apply critical thinking skills to make sure that what we're taking in is something that's going to add to what's already there and not take us away and ruin the basis that we've built up over time. And what the author here is saying, and this is a powerful point as well, this is quite profound, that our brains are not evolving at the same rate at which information is evolving and being disseminated. We just can't keep up, we just can't cope, and for many of us, we are overwhelmed by the amount of information that is being pushed our way. And I have noticed, though, over time, a number of people have turned away from social media, I guess have realised that there is a certain level of stress that is created by this information push, by this overstimulation of our brains, by these so-called influencers, people who take control of our thoughts, our feelings, and lead us on a merry chase. But once again, the warning is that we receive today in our lives, more information on a daily basis than what our forefathers, our grandfathers received in their entire lifetime. And the disadvantage of that is that we don't have time to process it. We don't have time to join the dots. We don't have time to think productively about all of that information, because it's just too much for us to handle, I guess, is the key message. So the next point that the author makes here is that the social media platforms exploit our attention on purpose so that they can make money and stay top of mind. The whole woke movement, where they take topics, they take subjects, they take positions that just don't stack up, just sound fanciful and absolutely stupid. But what the author here is suggesting, and what I've read elsewhere as well, is that woke media, woke television, woke programs take their position in order to disrupt us, in order to capture our attention. They're telling us things that that was absolutely wrong. Growing up, you know that things were black and white. You could discern right from wrong. But the woke media, the woke community, are taking things and turning it on its head, not because it's right, not because they believe it, but in order to arrest your attention, to capture an audience. And the only way they can do that is by creating drama, by making things controversial, for building a platform and gaining followers, just so that they can increase their ratings, increase the amount of people that they can subscribe to and advertise to. So programs like The Project and all of those things take positions not because they're right, as I said, not because they tick the box of our values, but because they create uncertainty, fear and doubt, which once again feed on people's insecurities. The other thing also to understand is that a lot of this free-to-air, a lot of these influencers on social media come to us for free. We don't have to pay for it with dollars. But what we do and what we're not aware of is that we're paying for it in terms of our valuable time. We're paying for it with our valuable attention spans. And what's happening is that with social media and the platforms that are available via the digital societies that we engage in, is that we have dopamine on tap. We scroll, we're in heaven, because we've got algorithms that keep us hooked and keep us on purpose. And as we said, a lot of these things are tailored to our individual tastes that have been mined over the years as we've been profiled to be certain types of people with certain interests. So be it that the marketeers, the puppeteers, play us for fools and take us on a merry journey, leading us step by step, crumb by crumb, to a place not of our choosing, but to a place of their choosing. And it gets to the point where you wake up one day, you look at yourself in the mirror, and you no longer recognise the person you've become because of the stuff, the media, the misinformation and disinformation that you have been fed, and it's shaped your worldview. in a negative way. So in 2020 we found out that Facebook exploits the human brain by creating attractions to divisiveness. They feed on people's fears and insecurities. They trend stories not because they're right, not because they're actually trending, but because the platform decides that this is the thing that they want to push. This is the flavour of the day that they want to push, because it's going to lead people astray and it's going to get us all emotional and fired up, and it'll trend, and once again it'll just capture our attention and capture us and remove us from the things that we should be focusing on: family, friends, work, and focusing on stupid topics which are going to, I guess, divide us and separate us from God and separate us from each other. So the last point that the author makes is, how do we break away from this? And he says that the first step to regaining focus is to stop celebrating multitasking and begin to practice a state of flow. We need to move away where possible, or to limit our time on multitasking, limit our time scrolling, limit our time trying to be everything to every person, because at the end of the day the human brain can only focus on one thing at a time. Realistically, we can only do one thing at a time. So what the author is calling us to action on is to stop celebrating multitasking and to move away from doom scrolling, because the whole industry, the whole media industry is incentivized on doom scrolling. And by doom scrolling, we mean where we just sit there scrolling through our social media, or mind-numbingly just watch television programs without thinking, by just chilling out and just watching the certain things on television. I remember when I was a kid, I'd be watching cartoons, and that in itself is another form of doom scrolling, because what it's doing is it's arresting your attention, it's taking you away from critical thought, and it's just leading you and shaping your worldview without you really knowing it, whilst your guard is down, and taking you on a journey not of your choosing. And you get to a point one day where your worldview has been shaped by Gilligan's Island, or your worldview has been shaped by McHale's Navy, or Looney Tunes, or you name it, Donald Duck, Mickey Mouse. So once again, we need to be aware that we're being shaped, we're being caressed, we're being manipulated to a certain extent. So we need to try and find some balance, I guess, is the key point. Some balance in our lives where we can at least have a say in what we take into our brains, what we take into our lives, so that we don't get completely overwhelmed and taken over. Because what happens is, according to this author, is we lose our deep focus. We lose our ability to think deeply. Because by multitasking and by performing multitasks and lots of different things, we look good. We tick the box. Other people see us as heroes. But what we're doing is we're lacking depth. We're lacking the ability to be effective. We're doing it to be efficient. We're doing it to look good, to appear better than what we actually are. But at the end of the day, what's more important is for us to be developing and to be delivering on the key aspects of our lives, and to understand that we're not computers, we're people, we have feelings, we connect, we have something which is more important than just the lists of tasks that we've done, but the amount of good that we've performed along the way. So the bottom line, the call to action from this author is we need to set our boundaries. We need to set our focus on one thing at a time. And just like the powerful lesson that I learned many years ago when I went hunting with my friend Stephen Smith, where the farmer told us, if you ever want to catch a piglet, just focus on one piglet and just chase that one piglet. Because what will happen is when you come across a mob of piglets, little ones, one will be going this direction, one will be going the other direction, and if you change your focus at any point in time and you change direction, then you'll miss out. So we went hunting with Steve. We come across a little group of piglets, and once again focus on the one, and I caught it. So it's a powerful lesson. You need to focus on one thing at a time, to grab it with your 10 fingers, grab it with your 2 hands and hug it to your chest as hard as you can. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me on this episode of Jim's 5 a.m. Club on this Tuesday morning. It's time for me to head into work. So I look forward to coming to you again from a different place with a different message of empowerment where we can live, learn and pass it on. So happy Tuesday to all, and I hope you gain something from this presentation. I know that I learn something new every single day, and I love capitalizing on what I learn by teaching it and reinforcing it as best I can. Take care everybody, yasas, and wishing you all the very best.